Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the New York State Restaurant Association for hosting this presentation. It is, of course, restaurant marketing for new and repeat business. I'm really excited to be here. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am passionate about the hospitality and restaurant business. I have a 30-year career in this space. I founded 5 high-volume restaurants from scratch. Be careful for what you wish for. It might come true. One restaurant led to another, but I have since sold all of those. And it was my wife's idea to sell those restaurants and focus on what she considered to be a bigger opportunity. She said, "You've got all this restaurant knowledge in your head. You could help people on a global level." So we started a company called Restaurant Rockstars, and we sell global training systems for restaurants in leadership, cost controls, maximizing profit, and marketing. I also have a weekly podcast. I'll tell you more about that. If you like to listen to podcasts, I'll tell you about that at the end of the presentation. I am the founder of the Restaurant Academy training system. I'll tell you about that. And I've also authored a couple of books. One is called Rock Your Restaurant, a game-changing guide to finances that will really move the needle. And I'm also the co-founder of a hospitality technology company in Seattle, and we have developed a really incredible staff training digital application. So with that said, let's move on with the presentation. So I always consult and coach when I have the time because I have a passion for the business, and I ask a couple of questions. And the first one is, what business are you in and what are you selling? And it's not a trick question, but you might imagine that I hear most often, well, I'm a restaurant owner, a general manager, and we sell food and drink. And I kind of stop them right there and say, when I was in this business, I was not in the business of running a restaurant. I was in the business of running a business. And I was into building a brand. And those are two completely different things, but they made all the difference in my success with my different concepts. So really, you should be thinking about building a business and building your brand, and know that your team are the foundation of that brand, and they are brand ambassadors for your business if they are properly trained. But more on that in a moment. Let's start with leadership. I use the word manager, general manager, and I don't like the word manager. And I don't mean to insult anyone that holds that title, but just because someone is a manager or is promoted to a manager does not mean that they are experienced or competent to lead, or that they inspire and motivate their team to best performance. So a leader is someone who, leads by example, recognizing talent. I don't like the word delegation either. It is way overused in our industry and others. And delegation means telling somebody what to do and even how to do it. And anyone can do that, but it's about empowerment. When you recognize talent in people, you can create what I call intrapreneurs in your business. And an intrapreneur, well, let's go back to entrepreneur. Some of you are entrepreneurs. You took a big risk to start your business in the hopes of making a profit. An intrapreneur is someone that applies that approach to your business, even though they don't own it, and they treat it like they own it. And they take initiative, and they want to move your business and your brand forward. Okay, so that's what intrapreneurship is. So when you empower people, when you recognize talent in others and you incentivize them to take on additional responsibility, it can really move the needle on your business. And the old way is the boss, the figurehead in the office that might bark orders at people and delegate and that sort of thing. But a leader gives people a chance to rise up in the organization, has faith in them and trust in their good judgment, and never criticizes but critiques that performance, and then recognizes and rewards the achievement. Now, not everyone in your organization wants to move up, but just know that many do. And if you don't provide or always be seeking new opportunities for them to take the next step, they could more than likely leave your business and go somewhere else, either to your competition or leave the industry entirely. So in my restaurants, it was always about recognizing talent, giving people additional responsibility, and then watching them shine. And it made a huge difference. It was an exit strategy in my business. All right, let's talk about what a brand is. Now, if you were to ask your customers, I like to use the word guests, not customers, but if you were to take a survey about, do I have a brand and what do you think my brand is? There might be a common thread on what your guests might tell you, but In any case, it's an image, it's an aura, it's a recognizable identification to your business that's really, really powerful. And when your team become brand ambassadors, they reinforce that brand and they become extensions of your brand. And they help you build your business. And they make friends with your guests every shift. And people will come in and ask for your people by name. And that is the foundation of a strong brand. But there's so much more to it. Look at this team. Don't they look empowered? Don't they look like you wish you had 20 more of these people? These people love what they do. They love working together. You can see there's team spirit, there's chemistry, that camaraderie, that's passion. And what do you think the end result is? Happy, satisfied guests. Like, wouldn't you want to sit down in a place like this and be served by by these people? So this is what I mean by creating brand ambassadors in your business, and that's a really powerful thing to do. All right, it starts with a logo. Now, not every restaurant has a logo, but it's very, very important. And it could be many, many different things, but your logo should represent your image, the image that you want to present and how you want your guests to feel about your business. So some logos can be black and white, which is more cost effective, and that can be really powerful. Maybe it's an illustration, maybe it's an artist's rendering of your building or your space or whatever it is, or maybe it's a specialty menu item that your restaurant is known for. That could be your logo. Maybe you have a mascot. There's a really successful restaurant on the island of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, and their logo is the black dog. It's a black Labrador retriever, and they've literally sold millions of dollars of logo branded merchandise around that logo. So think about what you can do with a really, really powerful logo. But again, you want it to be instantly recognizable. Everybody knows that the Golden Arches is McDonald's. Everybody knows that coffee cup, with the green mermaid on it. That's Starbucks. You want your image, your aura, your brand to instantly identify your business. Let's talk about packaging. All right, packaging is important. Now, when I consult or coach with restaurants, a lot of times when I recommend that they put their logo or their story on their packaging, they think, oh, that costs more. Well, sure, but you shouldn't look at something as a cost. You should look at it as an investment in brand building. Now, what do I mean by story? Every restaurant has a unique story that sets it apart from the competition. And you should promote that. If you're proud of it, if it's interesting, if it's unique or special in any way, it should be printed on every menu, on every takeout container. Let me tell you a story. My very first restaurant was a wood-fired pizzeria that I started in the state of Maine, and this is over 30 years ago. But I'm in this business for about 2 or 3 months, and we're making wood-fired pizzas, and we're making our own dough from scratch and our own sauces every day. And I just happened to pick up one of those foodie magazines, and the story and the cover photograph was actually about the origins of pizza, and I was fascinated by this article. And not everybody knows that pizza was invented in Naples, Italy, a couple hundred years ago, believe it or not. And even more incredible, the original pizzeria that invented the food we know of as pizza is still in business today. And if you were to get on a plane and go to Italy, you could visit the original pizzeria, and it's been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And the descendants of the original founders are still there today. So I'm reading this magazine article 30 years ago. That was a long time ago. And I lived in Italy when I was in graduate school, and I had very rusty but basic Italian. I had to get on a plane and go see this place, so I did, and I found it, and I walked in the door not expecting anything, but in my very rusty Italian, I was able to communicate to the descendants of the founders of the original pizzeria. I just started a wood-fired pizzeria in Maine, and I really want to do things the authentic Neapolitan way. Next thing you know, an apron gets thrown over the counter, and it's like, come on back. And I made pizza in the oldest pizzeria on the planet for the next 5 hours. And what an experience that was. And I learned secrets that I actually put into my pizzas to try to make them as authentic as possible. No one else could tell that story. That was unique. What's your story? Print it. Your guests are interested, and it's brand building. So I printed my story everywhere, and I always recommend that if you've got something interesting, promote it. Okay, visibility and curb appeal is really, really important. Now, sometimes we get really close to our restaurants and our businesses, but when was the last time you walked out the front door and stood in the parking lot or crossed the street, wherever your space happens to be, and try to put yourself in your guest's perspective, in your guest's shoes, and see what they see? I even used to bring some of my entrepreneurs outside, or even any random employee, and just ask them, what do you see? And sometimes you might miss things. There are things that are broken. There are burned out light bulbs, or maybe you need a fresh coat of paint, or maybe there's litter in the parking lot, or any of these things. And you really need to fix those things before the guest sees them. But more importantly, how do you make your space really pop and really stand out from any other business on that street? And it's about lights and signage. I started my second restaurant and it was a steakhouse. And I bought a piece of land and I built a building and it kind of sat up on a knoll, but it was very, very, visible, or at least the property had 1,200 feet of road frontage with lots of traffic. But it took me a while back then to realize that people are creatures of habit. If they always go to a certain restaurant, it's like they'll drive right by a new one, even if it looks great. But the visibility over time is what brings people in. And it used to frustrate me because I sat in the window day after I opened my doors, and I would literally watch 30 or 40 cars drive by for every car that pulled into my parking lot. And I'm scratching my head saying, what can I do? So the next thing I did, I went out and I got strings of light bulbs and I strung them around the perimeter of the building so that the building really popped off that little hill. And then the name of my restaurant was the Great Grizzly Bar and Steakhouse. I had an artist, really talented guy. He could do anything. I got this 13-foot giant log delivered to my property, and he carved a grizzly bear with a chainsaw, and we erected it with a crane on the front lawn, and that became a photo opportunity. And now suddenly all these cars are pulling in just to stop and take pictures of my bear, and then people started to come in the door and really check out my place. And then a year later, I'm like, what else can I do? I've got all this road frontage. So we put a propane torch on top of the bear's claw that literally had a flame that was burning 2 feet off the top of the bear, fueled by propane. And you could see that a mile in either direction. So these are just some of the things to really make your space pop. But again, pick up the litter, fresh coat of paint, lights and signage. Outdoor tables since the pandemic have become really popular. If you have any space in front of your business, if you put a couple of cafe tables out with an umbrella or fire pits, any of these things are really, really appealing, and they definitely drive business. Website. A great restaurant website is a virtual tour of your business before people actually walk in the door. Your whole goal with your website is to bring the experience of your restaurant to life. You want your food to shine. You want your ambiance to shine. You want to give people an experience as if they're already in your place, what it's like. So that's video, that's professional photography. You should have your menu on there. It should be optimized for mobile phones, of course. Online ordering, if possible, has become huge since the pandemic. Easily navigatable, not overly complicated. If you've got special events or promotions or live music or any of those things, there should be a calendar of what's happening and what's coming up. And then make sure you have an opt-in to build your email list. I had a newsletter for years that became super, super popular, and it was my logo, it was branded, it was one of those email platforms like MailChimp. And literally, I sent out a newsletter every 2 weeks on what was upcoming, what are new menu items, what's exciting that's going on. And it always ended with a trivia question, and then I awarded prizes. We gave away a free pizza to the first 5 people that answered the trivia question, and they were really kind of fun. And we just found that people really like to interact with that newsletter. So this all came from building an email list. So that's really, really important also. So think about your website as giving people your restaurant experience if they're first-time visitors and they just happen to go, or if they come back to your website to see what's happening. You want to remind them of how much fun your place is. Okay. Wow factor, what does that mean? A long time ago, when I first started my restaurants, it was really important that every single dish that came out of the kitchen or every single specialty cocktail or drink had what I called wow factor, which means whenever a server or a bartender put something in front of the guest, They didn't want to cut into it. They didn't want to drink it. They just wanted to look at it for a minute and have and just say wow to the rest of the guests at the table. And then I thought, well, it's not just about the food and the drink. It's about the ambiance. It's about the service. Everything about my restaurants should have wow factor. So what is unique, different, and interesting about your place? That's what I call a hook, and you cannot have too many hooks. These are the things that capture the guest's imagination. It's what they talk about, it's what they take photos of, and then they post, and things go viral. And this is all free marketing. And again, it's about brand building. You see that drink on the bar? That was something that we called Glacier Bowls, and it was a cash cow. It was actually pure profit. It was well liquor. It might be rum or vodka or gin and fruit juice, and then a splash of blue curacao or grenadine. And then we actually put those glow sticks that you see kids having at parades. They're non-toxic, and when you crack them, it makes the everything glow from the inside out. And when these things went through the dining room, dimly lit dining room, just glowing from the inside and out, everyone's like, what's that? I want that. These were $20 a piece, and it probably cost us about $1.50 in beverage cost. So it was pure profit to sell, and we sold thousands of them. So that was a hook. The wood burning brick oven in my first restaurant was a huge hook. You know, I see so many restaurants with the pizza oven in the back. No, it's part of the show. I always believe that the restaurant business is show business, it's entertainment. So I put my brick oven right in the middle of the dining room, and it was a show. The pizza makers are throwing the doughs in the air, and the fire's burning at 900 degrees, and they're moving the pizzas around, and then people are taking pictures, and all of that goes viral. And this is free marketing. So what are your hooks? Make a list of your hooks. Ask your team what they think is special. Make sure your team know what all your hooks are, and make sure they're talking about these things to your guests because your guests are interested. And that's brand building. Okay, QR codes. We see them everywhere. And it's so easy to create. You can just Google QR code, and there's a QR code creator, and you can literally drive business to any promotion or anywhere you want people to go. You can put them on your menus, on your table tents, or anywhere. And people are just so programmed to do this now. It's like it's an automatic, reflex in some cases. So social media, in-house promotions, anything that's going on. If you were to scan this right now, it would go to my podcast page. So if you're interested in listening to the Restaurant Rockstars podcast, scan the QR code. And I'll tell you more about that in a few minutes. Okay, we're going to move on. Okay, social media. Not everybody is a social media expert. If you're the owner or the general leader in your business, maybe you are and maybe you aren't, but just know that there are team members in your business that are constantly on social media. They might even be influencers, but they're on every platform. They know how it works. They know when to post, how often to post, what to post. But just know it's about your food. There should be a highlight on your food and your drinks, your signature items, whatever makes your place special, the hooks I just talked about. You should encourage your customers to post and check in with you because that drives business. Creative photo opportunities, what are those? Your ambiance could be a post. Off the menu specials, unique menu items, staff and customers having fun. My team used to take pictures of each other serving the guests with a full restaurant, and they'd post that. Recognized food holidays. I'm going to talk about that coming up, but that's an opportunity to post. But whatever you do, make it actionable, make it trackable with promotional codes or links, and then you know that your marketing is working for you. And again, social media is probably next to word of mouth, and it is a form of word of mouth. It is the most cost-effective form of marketing that does not cost you a lot of money. Okay, internal marketing. I learned a long time ago that it's so much easier and cost-effective to market to your regulars, the loyal people that love your business now, than to constantly be seeking new business. Although I've got some new business ideas coming up, just know that the internal four walls of your business are a promotional opportunity. You can market your most profitable items. You can market your hooks, whatever they are, okay? Loyal customers are going to see this. They'll be brand ambassadors for your business. We see these giant chalkboards in restaurants, and people love those. And it's an easy way to draw attention to those signature items or those hooks again. Framed announcements in the bathrooms. We used to have bulletin boards in the bathrooms. on the wall, on the door that you leave, all that sort of thing, promoting some of our most profitable items, our hooks, our upcoming live music events, all those things. And we also had what they call table tents or table talkers. Now, unless you have a five-star fine dining, white tablecloth, tuxedo waiter kind of place, chances are if you're a family casual restaurant, you might have table tents, and they can be really well done. And just know that you don't have to pay for these because the suppliers you do business with often have graphic departments, graphic arts departments with professionals that will literally produce this stuff for you. I used to get it all for free at my restaurants also. So you don't ask, you don't get. Logo merchandise. Now, here's another branding opportunity. It's free marketing. People pay you to buy your merchandise and wear it around town. And it's pretty amazing. And not just around town, just anywhere. It's an additional profit center that really rings the register because impulse sales happen all the time. But you can't sell logo merchandise until you build that powerful brand. But once you do, if you've got a powerful logo and people really resonate with your brand, they will buy your merchandise. It's t-shirts, it's hats, it's hoodies, it's flasks, it's pint glasses, it's an unlimited number of things that you can actually sell. We had a photo contest that really moved the needle on sales of merchandise. Every year, I got a huge prize from one of my suppliers. One year, it was a gas grill and like 50 pounds of Black Angus steaks. Like, who didn't want to win that? And all we did was say, buy one of our logo items, wear it somewhere and take an interesting picture around the world and then submit an 8x10 8.5 by 11 photo, whatever it was. You get the idea with the frames, and bring those in, submit them. And that's old school, but it worked huge because we then hung those pictures on the wall in our bar. And I go there today as a customer in this old restaurant, and there are literally hundreds of these photo contest entries still hanging there, which brings people in. They show their friends, hey, that's my photo, that kind of thing. But how powerful was that? I think the winner that year with the gas grill and the steaks, I had a guest, a loyal guest of mine who had a friend who was a state police trooper in the neighboring state. And he actually asked the cop to stage his arrest on the side of the highway where he's being thrown up against the car and being handcuffed wearing my t-shirt. And that was just the lights are flashing. You see how creative people can get. And that's just a fun promotional idea. But logo merchandise increases the check average. If people are on vacation in your place or if they just like your brand, they will buy your merchandise as gifts or for themselves, and it moves the needle. I told you about that Black Dog restaurant selling millions of dollars. That one black Labrador retriever, just a profile of this dog, and then it just said the Black Dog circa 1988 or whenever the business started, and they've literally sold millions of dollars. Why? Because they have an online store, and now they've actually have pop-up stores across the country, little retail stores in retail areas of the country selling their merchandise. Whether you've ever been to Martha's Vineyard or not, they're still selling the Black Dog stuff. My restaurant alone probably sold $30,000 in t-shirts a month just because it was a powerful thing. We merchandised it well. It's like Disneyland. You can't go to any theme park without walking in, walking out, and passing 30 different retail outlets that you have to pass through to get to anywhere. That's smart, right? It's just impulse spending. So that's another brand building idea. Let's not miss events and holidays. You need a master calendar of every single event and holiday that's coming up, including food holidays. You may not be aware, but there is a national food holiday every single month, if not several times a month. It's National Cheeseburger Day. It's National Pizza Day. It's National Cupcake Day. If you sell that food, promote that holiday and drive business. But again, the typical ones, Valentine's Day, New Year's, Cinco de Mayo, St. Patrick's Day, the Super Bowl. My team used to dress up and they'd black out their eyes and they'd wear their favorite team jersey for the Super Bowl, and the bussers would even wear the football helmets, and people get into the spirit of it. And that is a powerful marketing idea unto itself. So don't forget the holidays. Put a calendar together. This is probably the biggest needle mover of all for marketing and brand building. A mug club. If you sell draft beer or even if you have a coffee shop, you will build repeat business and get loyal guests in the door. If they used to come into your place twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, maybe that was a lot. Now you'll suddenly see them coming in several times a week, which really is an amazing thing. One, you can sell memberships to your mug club, anywhere from $50 to $100 a year. And the more people that buy the mugs, obviously that's a new revenue source. It can be absolutely positive cash flow with no expense out of pocket if you find a sponsor for your mug club, which I did. I had sponsors that put their logo on the mugs, but then they bought the mugs and they bought the t-shirts that we gave out to every mug club member, and we promoted them in our bar internally. And in exchange for the exposure, the bigger your club gets to be, the more likely it is that a sponsor wants to reach that audience. So this all started by empowering. I mentioned that word empowerment earlier. I empowered my bar leader, 28 years ago, to start a mug club. I didn't invent the idea, but you go to these sports bars, you see the mugs hanging. I'm like, we want to start a mug club, go do it. And I didn't tell him how to do it. That would have been delegating. I gave him the initiative and that directive, start a mug club. So he bought 25 mugs just to see what would happen. And he sold them out in a day. He really liked to talk to people. And then what happened next was the mug club members invited their friends to join and their family to join. And then over time, it starts to grow and grow and grow. So he brought in more mugs. When I sold that restaurant in 2014, that same leader had sold 1,200 mugs in this club. And this picture you see on the screen is just a small snapshot of the interior. And he built the custom rack. He went all over the place, but over the top of the bar, he had this wire cable rack system set up with, well, we didn't fit 1,200 mugs over the bar. There were probably 600 mugs over the bar, and then there were hundreds of mugs behind the counter and here, there, and everywhere. And all we had to do was deliver amazing guest service. He had a big giant bell that he mounted behind the bar. And whenever a mug club member walked in the door, my bartenders got to know these people, the people that came in several times a week. And every time one of those people came in, bang, 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 and we recognized these people the minute they walked through the door. And then my bartenders knew their favorite beer and had the beer poured and ready for them before they got to the bar. And if the bar was full, the mug would get passed through the crowd, the other mug club members that knew these people. They were like VIPs, and the beer actually reached them even though they couldn't get to the bar. Now that was service, and that was brand building, and that created such momentum in my place. So imagine you charge $55 and you sell 1,000 mugs. That's $55,000 of free and clear cash, especially if you have a sponsor. But that's not the big picture. The big picture is the spending when all of these people come in 3 and 4 times a week and they buy the food and they buy your logo merchandise and they buy the beer. And then the ladies said, well, we drink beer sometimes, but how about you start a wine club for us? So we did that. So now we've got much nicer big goblet wine glasses with a larger pour for the ladies. And that was a membership club too. So we just took care of our guests, but this mug club thing was so powerful. So it's a great idea if you sell draft beer. And we have a complete course in the academy that I'll tell you about that just teaches us soup to nuts how to do this alone. But wow, if you can use an extra $5, $10, $15, or $20,000 a year free and clear, why wouldn't you do it? Okay, staying in touch. SMS is huge, right? Our phones, we're glued to our phones every single day. And whenever your phone dings and somebody's texting you, you can't resist, right? You got to pull your phone out of the pocket and immediately look at who it is. So if you can capture obviously if you can capture phone numbers so that you can create a database of text, that's a huge promotional idea. Upcoming events and promotions and new specials and all those types of things. Email broadcasts. SMS has a much greater open rate, but again, I told you about the newsletter that was just hugely popular because it was interactive. We encouraged people to answer our trivia questions. That was fun. That was simple to do. You can do that. And then direct mail campaigns can sometimes work also. There are companies in every state that will ask you what zip codes do you want to reach, and you can put together, a zip code, just your town, the neighboring towns, whatever it is. You come up with a promotion and make it appealing so that people, when it ends up in their mailbox, they don't throw it out, but they've got to come in the door. And that can work really well also. But I have even better ideas. It's really important to make sure that you can track your marketing. Now, so many restaurants that I've worked with or talked to on the road when I speak at events, they're just really dissatisfied with their marketing because it's not trackable. It's an experiment. So many restaurants spend thousands of dollars on a new idea and they have absolutely no idea if it works, if it's driving business in the door, or where that business is coming from. And that's the trackable part. So, sometimes in a moment of weakness, someone will walk in the back door. This is the only business I know where people walk into your business with no appointment unannounced. And maybe it's a radio station salesman, or the guy calls you on the phone and like, hey, we're going to custom create an ad for you. And we're going to put you on the radio and everyone driving to work is going to hear and come into your restaurant. Well, unless everybody comes in the door and says, hey, Roger, I heard you on the radio, which never happens, you'll never know if it works. Meanwhile, thousands of dollars spent. So you need trackable marketing ideas. So I came up with this idea, right? I worked with partners, and who a partner was not a restaurant. It was a local businesses, I should say, in my local area. Whenever I opened a new restaurant and I immediately wanted traffic to come in the door and I wanted to seed that with loyal people, I drove around my town, wherever the restaurant happened to be, within maybe a 2 or 3 mile radius, and I tried to identify high traffic businesses that had lots of customers coming and going. Maybe they were dry cleaners, maybe they were retail stores or a movie theater, whatever it was. And I had these business cards printed up that were 4-color business cards with a cash cow on it. And I'll show you that coupon in a minute. And I walked in the door of these businesses, introduced myself, and I said, I'm opening this new restaurant and I'd love to give your customers, your guests, if they call them guests, something absolutely free just for coming in. Okay. And if you stamp the back of the coupon so I know where it's coming from, there's the trackable piece, then I'm going to give you 10% back in trade for every dollar that comes in the door before tax. Boy, was that powerful. And then, we cross promoted their business and it really worked. So I probably had 4 or 5 different businesses that I tracked that sent me probably $12,000 to $15,000 each in new business that I probably wouldn't have got on my own in the first 2 months that I opened the doors of this place, only because I tracked them, where they were coming from. I had my bartenders and my servers take those coupons, staple them to the guest check, and then my office manager had an Excel spreadsheet and she simply tracked the spending, less the tax, and then we loaded gift cards for these business owners or general leaders, and we said, you know what, we're going to keep it behind the counter. We're going to tally up what business you drive in, and then you can just come in and use your gift card and sign the check, and people love that. So you can use it for employee incentives, do whatever you want with it. Bring your wife or your partner in for dinner, doesn't matter, the gift card's waiting for you. And they were pretty surprised that they had so much money on those gift cards pretty regularly. So that worked well. So here's the coupon. Absolutely free. I told you I had a wood burning brick oven restaurant, the pizzeria. So we had this cash cow called garlic knots. Absolutely 28 cents was the cost of serving the garlic knots because the dough part was already costed out in the pizza that we were going to make, the next pizza that we were going to sell. We had a professional dough roller. We metered out every single dough ball to the exact number of ounces. And whenever we obviously took that dough and laid it on the pizza pan, that dough rises in the oven. So we were able to trim about 1.5 to 2 inches around the perimeter of the pizza pan. My staff tied those into knots. They brushed it with a little bit of olive oil. We sprinkled a little minced garlic and Parmesan cheese on it, and they baked up in the oven, and we charged $10 on the menu for these things. They become our most popular appetizer. But for the cost of 28 cents, it was simply the homemade marinara sauce that cost the money. And we were able to give them away. And this is the coupon we passed out to these businesses. So if you can come up with a cash cow that costs you very little, but you charge a lot of money on the menu, so there's very high perceived value and wow factor, you can do that too. So that was a great idea. Do you know the average check for every one of these things that came in the door over a couple of months was $85, because people would never come in alone. It was always bring another person, sometimes bring, 2 other people. Sure, some of the spending was over $100 and some was like $50, but the average was $85 for the cost of 28 cents to give this thing to them. And it was just brilliant. So I'm like, wow, I'm onto something. So we got you in the door the first time, and hopefully you loved our service and you loved our ambiance and the food, but I wanted to guarantee you came back again. So I came up with another idea. And I'm like, what can I do? I'm in a convenience store decades ago, right? I'm in a convenience store and the person in front of me is holding up the line because they can't decide what colorful lottery ticket to buy. There's all these rolls of tickets, jackpot this, sweepstakes that. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to come up with my own lottery ticket, right? And I'm going to give away cash cows. So I found a printer that did lottery ticket printing, and we came up with our own sweepstakes scratch and win. Every ticket was a winner. I probably had 7 or 8 different cash cows that cost 28 to 30 cents that I could afford to give away. And when did we give these away? To the people once they paid their check and the server, the bartender brought back their change with cash or the credit card slip to sign, and they'd simply say, hey, we're having a fun promotion. I hope you win. It's a lottery ticket. And immediately the people would pull out the quarter and they'd scratch it. Some of these, we did this for years in different restaurants, and some of them had little squares or triangles, and there were 5 or 6. Some of them were in a row like this, and they were randomly shuffled because we didn't want people to, we didn't want people to get the same cash cow if they came in again. So this became a huge promotion. And what's the kicker here? Again, the average spend was $85 to bring them back in again. And now I'm like, I gotcha, right? We built a brand. You like our food. You like our ambiance. We got wow factor everywhere. And now you're our loyal, regular guest. So make it fun for the kids. I also learned that the kids often determine where the family goes out to eat, and the kids want to go to the fun place. So there's so many things you can do to make it fun for kids, because happy parents, right? Happy kids equal happy parents. So we had the wood-fired pizzeria. We used to pass out dough balls for them to play with. We had helium balloons that every kid got on the way out the door. We had a prize chest that looked like a pirate's treasure chest. It was a cardboard box that an artist made to look really nice, like a treasure chest, with a slot on top. And we had all these inexpensive little toys for the kids, and they could reach in and pull out a toy. But one of the biggest things we did was a diorama. Now, if you've ever been to a county fair or a carnival, you've seen these big plywood sheets that are colored, or an artist has painted some kind of a scene on there, and they've got the face cutouts, and you stick your face in there and it's a photo op. They don't take up much space, but if you can create that's on brand with your concept, with an interesting artistic rendering of something, it's a photo op and people will take pictures. The kids love it, the adults love it, and what do you think happens? It's all over social media showing people having a great time in your restaurant. But the other big thing is right here on the screen. There are game companies, again, in every state that will bring in arcade games absolutely free, no charge to you. And if you've got a little bit of space or real estate, even if you've got room just for one of these crane games with the stuffed animals inside, the game company will bring in the game, they'll bring in a change machine, and they'll maintain them. If anything breaks, they'll come in and fix it. Doesn't happen very often, but you get the idea. And then they come in once a week and they just cash it out and they give you 50% of whatever the machine brings in. And you wouldn't believe how many parents are feeding the kids $5 and $10 bills just so that they go have fun, so the parents can have a nice fun dinner. And it became another cash revenue center in my restaurant. So there's another idea. So that's the presentation, but don't go yet. Let me tell you about the podcast. So the Restaurant Rockstars podcast has now presented 440 episodes, over 800,000 plays of people just like yourself, and we talk about guest service, marketing, finance, technology, anything that'll help you run a stronger restaurant, and it's available free on any of these major podcast players. But if you go to our website, restaurantrockstars.com, on any page, you can also give us your email address, and we won't spam you, but you can get the podcast in your email inbox. We'll send it to you every week, and it's released as a video because some people like to watch, like you're watching me right now, interact with my guest on the show, and some people like to listen when they're driving to the restaurant or walking the dog. And then, let me tell you about the Academy. If you're looking to improve your processes, put systems in place in your restaurant, it's literally everything I've learned in 30 years about running super profitable restaurants. But if you're mostly concerned about profit and increasing your profit during a time of shrinking margins and high labor costs, we have something within the Academy called the Restaurant Profit Fast Track that'll give you immediately actionable templates and ideas on what you can do to boost your bottom line, how to maximize your menu profit, how to really dial in your costs, and really maximize your profit. But there's over 80 lessons in the academy. And I don't even like to use the word lesson because this is not going back to school. You decide what's most important in your business. You don't have to follow this like a course from A to B. You can say, oh, I want to establish leadership in my business. And I've got templates for all the career descriptions and performance reviews and disciplinary procedures and all that, and how to be a leader, not a manager, how to create entrepreneurs. You might decide that's important, or the fast track, or marketing, or anything. Or if you're starting a new restaurant, there's a complete module on everything you need to do to open the doors of that first restaurant. But just for New York State Restaurant Association members and guests, we have a special promotional code here. So if you scan this code and use NYSRA15, you'll get a 15% off the Academy. So that is the Restaurant Profit Fast Track at the Restaurant Academy. Lastly, if you have any restaurant questions, or if I can be of any service to you, if you need a coach, if I can help you build your business in any way, I do dedicate time every month to people that just like yourselves that have a passion for the business, that want to take your business to the next level. So please reach out to me, Roger, R-O-G-E-R, at restaurantrockstars.com. I thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Sarah and the New York State Restaurant Association for allowing me to give you a presentation today.
Thank you so much, Roger. We always appreciate your time and expertise. If there's any questions for Roger, you can enter those into the Q&A box now. I'll just remind everybody that the presentation was recorded, and NYSER members have the access to our member resource center on nyser.org, and that's where our webinar archive lives with other webinars that Roger has done for us in the past, other experts, other subject matters. It's really an excellent wealth of information for our members. And if you have questions on membership, we're always happy to talk to you about that. info@nyser.org. Last minute here for anyone to get those questions in for Roger. That's a very gracious offer, offering your academy at such a discount to the attendees today. Thank you so much for that, Roger.
No, you're very welcome. Thank you.
And I will also, just while I have a few people on here listening, I will plug an upcoming event we have. We're hosting our annual Women in Hospitality Conference in New York City on June 4th. It is at a spectacular location that everyone should want to see and join us. It is at the Google office. It's their St. John's Terminal location. It's really very spectacular. You can visit nyser.org for all of the details. Roger, there is a question here. Do you have any tips on using branding to recruit new employees?
You know, I really love that question
Great
because
question.
far too many restaurants and businesses of any industry today, you're driving down the street and you just see the now hiring on the sign, or there's a sign in the window, and that is not the way to do it. So yes, branding is key, but I do have one idea that I didn't think of. I didn't invent it, but I thought it was genius. During the pandemic, there is a 28 location chain in Southern California that's literally open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner in 28 locations. And they had a huge challenge recruiting or finding people. And they came up with the idea that they were going to give their gift cards to their loyal guests who referred a new recruit that lasted 60 days. So they handed out their branded gift cards after someone sent someone for obviously that 60-day period and did a great job. But they had a really solid training program and they had a very high retention rate. And I passed that on to everyone I know because I thought it was great. And it didn't cost them $250. It was literally their food costs. So if they had a 28 or a 30% food cost, it's 30 cents on the dollar. And if they got a great team member, it was really worth it to them. And this worked to fill their locations. And I do believe that they still do that whenever they're looking to recruit new people. So yes, it is about recruiting and not hiring, and promoting your brand as something that stands apart versus your competition. What makes you unique, special, and different? And do you have a company culture? You need to promote all these things. It's not just being the boss and having employees. It's about empowering people, giving them a voice, making them feel special, and then giving them opportunities to move up. And that's a really powerful branding message unto itself. So make sure, if that's your philosophy, you let potential recruits know, we're different. We're unique. We're going to give you opportunity. We're going to treat you special, and we're going to honor and value your contributions and your opinions. So yeah, branding is the foundation of all of that.
I love that idea, Roger, with the gift cards, because then you're also encouraging customer engagement and buy-in for your restaurant. I mean, they want a good server at one of their locations that they like to visit too, right? So it's like a really a 360 approach to handling it.
I absolutely agree.
Any other questions for Roger? All right. Everyone, thank you for your time. Roger, I'm sure we'll see you back here again soon, and I hope you all have a great day. Thanks
Thank
for
you very
joining.
much for listening and tuning in. Stay well, everyone. Thank you.